In the heart of the bustling city stood a small convenience store tucked between towering glass buildings. It looked ordinary, a place people passed by without a second thought. But today, something extraordinary was about to happen inside those narrow aisles. The doorbell chimed softly as an elderly man with dark glasses and a white cane stepped in. His movements were slow, deliberate, and uncertain. To anyone watching, he seemed like a frail, blind man searching for help in a world that often had no time for the vulnerable. At first glance, no one paid him much mind. Customers continued tapping their phones and grabbing snacks. But behind the counter stood a young woman named Emily, tidying the register and humming quietly to herself. When she noticed the man struggling to find his way, she immediately set aside what she was doing. Something about his presence felt heavy, like there was more to him than met the eye. She didn't know this yet, but her next few minutes would change her life forever. "Excuse me, sir," she said gently, stepping out from behind the counter. "Can I help you find something?" The man tilted his head toward her voice, smiling faintly. "Oh, I'd appreciate that, dear. I'm looking for a bottle of water. But they all look the same to me." Emily glanced at the rows of identical bottles and chuckled softly, guiding him by the arm. There was kindness in her touch, the kind that made even a stranger feel safe. As they walked together, something in the old man's voice trembled slightly. "People don't usually help me," he said. "They see the cane and walk faster." Emily frowned at that. "That's their loss," she replied simply. "Everyone deserves respect." She couldn't see it, but behind those dark glasses, tears began to collect in his eyes, because unbeknownst to her, this wasn't just any man. He was hiding a secret worth billions, and her small act of kindness was about to reveal what money could never buy. The man's cane tapped lightly against the floor as he followed Emily back toward the counter. Along the way, he pretended to stumble slightly, letting a small package slip from his hands. Without hesitation, Emily bent down, picked it up and placed it in his palm. "You've got good reflexes," the man said with a faint laugh. "I just try to help when I can," she replied, shrugging it off. Her tone was simple, unpretentious, no trace of pity, only genuine care. When they reached the counter, Emily placed his items down carefully and began ringing them up. The man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a wallet that looked almost too worn for its owner. "How much will that be?" he asked. "Just a few dollars," Emily said softly. He handed her a few crumpled bills, far more than the amount needed. "Oh no, sir, this is too much," she said immediately, starting to hand it back. But he smiled faintly. "Keep the change. Maybe it'll help someone else someday." At that moment, a cold breeze swept through the open door, causing a few receipts to flutter off the counter. Emily turned quickly, chasing one that had landed near the door. She didn't notice how carefully the old man was watching her, noting every reaction, every small gesture. For him, this was more than an errand. It was a test of character, integrity, and empathy in a world obsessed with appearances and profit. When she returned, slightly out of breath, he smiled again. "You must really care about this little store," he said. Emily laughed. "I guess I do. It's not the job that matters. It's the people who come through that door." Those words struck the old man harder than she could have imagined. He had spent decades in boardrooms, surrounded by people who smiled only when cameras flashed or deals closed. And here, in a modest shop, stood someone who valued humanity more than gain. He realized with quiet astonishment that she already passed the first test with grace. After a few moments of quiet conversation, the old man began to pat his pockets with growing concern. His fingers trembled as he checked one side of his coat, then the other. A frown slowly creased his face. "Oh dear," he murmured under his breath. "I think I might have dropped my wallet somewhere outside." His voice carried a mix of embarrassment and fear. an emotion Emily recognized instantly. Without hesitation, she leaned over the counter. "Don't worry, sir. Sit down for a moment. I'll help you look for it." She hurried outside into the chilly air, scanning the sidewalk and even crouching near the curb, where wind swept a few stray papers around. The man watched from inside, his expression unreadable. When Emily came back a minute later, slightly breathing hard, she shook her head. "I didn't see it anywhere, but maybe you left it at home," she offered kindly, trying to comfort him. He sighed deeply and lowered his head, whispering almost to himself, "That was all the cash I had." Emily thought for a second, then did something that made his heart ache. She stepped closer and said, "Listen, you don't worry about the water, okay? It's on me." The man's brows lifted behind his glasses. "You do that?" he asked softly. "Of course," she said with a gentle smile. "You needed help, not judgment." He stared at her, overwhelmed by the sincerity in her tone. For a long moment, silence filled the store, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator units. The billionaire, hidden behind the mask of the blind man, felt something stir within him, a realization that no amount of wealth could buy the warmth of true kindness. Emily walked back to the counter, printed a receipt, and scribbled a small note on it. "Come back any time." She tucked it gently into the old man's hand, unaware that her gesture would soon reach far beyond this small act of compassion. As the old man gathered his things to leave, he fumbled with his cane, causing a small, elegant watch to slip from his wrist and clatter onto the counter. It wasn't just any watch. It gleamed with the subtle markings of a luxury brand, worth more than Emily's monthly rent. She noticed it immediately, but said nothing at first, watching as he shuffled toward the door without a backward glance. The store fell quiet again, save for the distant hum of traffic outside. Emily picked up the watch carefully, turning it over in her hands. Its weight felt heavy, almost unreal in the fluorescent light of the store. She could have pocketed it. No one was watching, and who would miss a blind man's lost trinket? But instead, she placed it gently on the counter and called out softly, "Sir, wait. You forgot something important." The man paused at the door, turning slowly. "What's that?" he asked, his voice laced with feigned confusion. She described it to him in detail, the smooth metal band, the intricate face, guiding his hand to feel its shape. "This looks expensive." "You don't want to lose it," she said firmly. As he took it back, his fingers brushed hers, and for a split second his grip tightened with unspoken gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice cracking just enough to hint at deeper emotion. Emily waved it off. "No problem. Happens to everyone." But as he stepped out into the street, the billionaire removed his glasses briefly, wiping away a tear that no one could see. In his world of private jets and penthouses, honesty like hers was rarer than diamonds. He lingered just out of sight, deciding to push the test further. Little did Emily know, this was only the beginning of a chain of challenges designed to uncover the depths of her character and perhaps rewrite her future. Moments after the old man left, the store door swung open with a bang, ushering in a group of impatient customers during the lunch rush. A burly man in a suit barked his order without looking up from his phone. "Coffee black now." Emily nodded politely, moving quickly to pour it despite the rudeness. "Coming right up, sir," she said with a steady smile, handing it over with a napkin. He grabbed it and tossed exact change on the counter, muttering about slow service. Next came a woman with a stroller, complaining loudly about expired coupons while her toddler knocked candy bars to the floor. Emily knelt down calmly, picking them up one by one without a sigh or eye roll. "No worries, ma'am. I've got you covered with a fresh one," she offered, scanning a replacement. The woman softened slightly, thanking her as she left. Through it all, the billionaire watched from across the street, hidden in the shadow of a newsstand, noting how Emily never let frustration show. Then a teenager sauntered in, demanding free snacks. "Because the machine ate my money." Emily listened patiently, checked the log, and refunded him double without argument. "Here you go. Better luck next time," she said warmly. The boy grinned sheepishly and left with a wave. Her grace under fire was mesmerizing. In boardrooms, tempers flared over millions, yet here she diffused chaos with quiet dignity. The billionaire's chest tightened as he observed. He had seen executives crumble under less stress, yet Emily treated every soul with equal respect. Wiping his glasses, he decided it was time for the next phase, a personal crisis to truly measure her selflessness. He straightened his disguise and prepared to return, knowing this young clerk was proving something profound about humanity. Less than an hour later, the doorbell chimed again, and the old man reappeared, his steps more frantic this time. He clutched his cane tightly, breathing heavily as if he'd run the last block. "Miss Emily, is it?" he called out, voice breaking with urgency. She looked up from restocking shelves, concern etching her face immediately. "Yes, sir, what's wrong?" He leaned against the counter, feigning exhaustion. "My daughter, she's sick. I need to call an ambulance, but my phone died, and I have no money left after losing my wallet earlier." Emily's eyes widened with empathy. Without a second thought, she pulled her own phone from her apron and dialed emergency services, speaking clearly into it while holding his trembling hand. "Yes, it's urgent. Her father says she's collapsed at home nearby." She gave the address, he whispered, staying calm as the operator asked questions. Hanging up, she turned to him. "They're on the way. Sit here. Let me get you some water." But he shook his head, pulling out a crumpled photo from his pocket, a staged image of a young girl looking ill. "She's all I have, and I promised her ice cream if she felt better." Emily hesitated only a moment, then reached into her own lunch bag, pulling out the last of her homemade cookies she'd saved for her break. "Here, take these to her. Tell her they're from a friend." Her voice was steady, but her eyes glistened with shared worry. As he took them, tears welled visibly behind his glasses. "You're giving up your food for a stranger?" Emily nodded simply. "Family comes first, any family." In that instant, the billionaire felt exposed. Her sacrifice mirrored losses he'd buried under layers of wealth. He murmured thanks and shuffled out, but not before slipping a note into her tip jar. The test had evolved. This was no longer just observation. It was a mirror to his own forgotten humanity. The store had quieted down for a brief moment when the old man returned once more, his face pale and drawn. He made it just a few steps past the door before clutching his chest dramatically, staggering forward with a gasp. "Help! My heart!" he wheezed, collapsing to his knees right in the middle of the aisle. Cans rattled as his cane clattered to the floor. Emily spun around from the register, her heart racing, and rushed to his side without a second's pause. "Sir, stay with me! Don't move!" she commanded firmly, easing him onto the floor and propping his head with a folded jacket from nearby. She grabbed her phone again, dialing 911 with one hand while checking his pulse with the other. "Yes, emergency at the convenience store on 5th. Elderly man, possible heart attack. He's conscious, but in distress." Her voice stayed steady, professional, even as sweat beaded on her forehead from the adrenaline. While waiting for help, she reassured him softly, holding his hand. "Breathe slow, in and out. You're doing great. You're not alone." The man's eyes, hidden behind glasses, locked onto hers, filled with a mix of feigned pain and real awe. A few curious customers gathered, but Emily waved them back. "Give him space, please." Paramedics arrived minutes later, praising her calm response as they loaded him onto a stretcher. As they wheeled him out, he gripped her hand one last time, whispering hoarsely, "You saved me today." Emily squeezed back, tears in her eyes. Just doing what anyone should. Watching from the ambulance window, the billionaire's disguise cracked further. Her heroism wasn't for show. It was instinct. He knew the final tests awaited, but her light was already piercing his armored world. Hours later, Emily arrived at the hospital after her shift, worried about the old man she'd helped. Nurses directed her to his room, where he lay in a bed, monitors beeping softly. No longer in full disguise, he sat up slightly, his posture more commanding, glasses off, revealing sharp, intelligent eyes that didn't match the frail image. "You came," he said, voice warmer, deeper. Emily smiled hesitantly. "Of course. I had to check on you. How's your heart?" He patted the bed edge, inviting her to sit. "Better, thanks to you. But truth is, it wasn't what you think." Confusion flickered across her face as he reached for a water cup she refilled without asking. "I'm not just a blind wanderer," he admitted softly. "My name's Alexander Grant. I own companies you've heard of." Emily's eyes widened, recognizing the billionaire from headlines, philanthropist, recluse, empire builder. "Why the disguise?" she whispered. Alexander leaned forward, vulnerability cracking his polished facade. "I test people, see who they are when no one's watching. Wealth changes everything. I wanted real humanity." He described her acts, the water, cookies, crisis calm, each one piercing his cynicism. Tears glistened in his eyes again. "You didn't know, yet you gave everything. No one's done that for me in years." Emily blushed, shaking her head. "It's just decency." In that sterile room, walls tumbled, Alexander gripped her hand. "You passed every test, not for reward, but because it's who you are." Emily stayed, listening as he shared fragments of a lonely life atop fortunes. Outside, his team waited, but for once he felt seen, not as a mogul, but as a man moved to tears by her unyielding light. The hospital room grew quieter as Alexander sat straighter, his gaze steady on Emily. "I've built empires, but today you taught me what matters," he said earnestly. "I want to change your life, no tricks, no catch." Emily shifted uncomfortably, unsure. "What do you mean?" He smiled faintly. "That store job? It's beneath you. I'm offering you a foundation to start your own business. Any dream you've buried, funding, mentors, everything. Say the word." Her eyes searched his face for hidden motives, but found only sincerity. Memories flashed, her late parents' struggles, her own stalled dreams of opening a community cafe for the needy. "That's too much," she murmured, voice thick. "I can't just take charity." Alexander shook his head firmly. "Not charity. Investment in goodness. You've earned it through heart, not hustle. Walk away if it feels wrong. I'll respect that too." Tears spilled down her cheeks as the weight sank in. She thought of endless shifts, lonely nights, the quiet hope she'd clung to. "I've always wanted to help people like you pretended to be. Feed them, listen, lift them up." Alexander nodded, moved. "Then do it. Your cafe could change lives." No pressure hung in the air. Her choice was free, pure. Emily wiped her eyes, a radiant smile breaking through. "Okay, but not for the money, for the people." Alexander's throat tightened. Even now she reframed his gift as purpose. He called his assistant discreetly, setting wheels in motion. In that moment, her untainted spirit sealed not just a deal, but a profound bond, one that promised to heal his guarded soul. Sunlight filtered through the hospital blinds as Emily stood, her decision lighting her face with quiet resolve. Alexander watched, heart pounding, not from wealth's rush, but from something deeper. "You've given me more than money could buy," he said, voice faltering. "A reminder that kindness isn't extinct." Emily reached out, squeezing his hand like she had in the store. "We all need that reminder sometimes. You're not alone anymore." Those simple words shattered him. Tears streamed down the billionaire's face openly now, no glasses, no disguise, just raw vulnerability. He who commanded empires and stifled emotions in boardrooms sobbed like a child. "No one's ever seen me like this," he choked out. "You didn't help for fame or fortune. You saw a soul." Emily hugged him gently, whispering, "That's what we all deserve." Word spread fast. Headlines blared of the disguise test. Emily's cafe launched with fanfare, lines forming before opening day. But for Alexander, the real victory was personal. He became her silent partner, funding anonymously while rebuilding his life around genuine connections. Emily thrived, her kindness rippling outward, proving one Clark's heart could move mountains. In the end, the store stood empty, but its legacy lived on. A plaque now read, "Kindness changes everything." Alexander visited often, no longer disguised, just a man grateful for tears that washed away years of isolation. Emily's response hadn't just made him cry, it made him whole.